Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Let's go!
Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Part 2, joining me today is...
Steve Baxi.
And I am Lord Chilled.
Yeah.
Descended from my throne. Oh, good lord. I am Matt. What's up? I have not been here in a minute, so I'm happy to be back.
Yay, Matt. Everyone's
Yay.
Favorite Geeky Gentleman, Matt.
Exactly. The show's been sucking since I've been gone, so I'm here to bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I really wanted someone on the show to get Geeky Gentleman views, this is no shade at anyone, but it's gonna be Ruben, Comics Kid 2099, for the simple reason that, like, all of the episodes where he picked something to review, he always picked, like, these really obscure movies that no one's ever fucking heard of. And so I'd upload them, and I'd upload the review, and, like, pick a thumbnail for the movie, yada yada. And, like, without fail, every single one of those people think is the movie. And so those have thousands of views.
Oh my god, he found the cheats.
That's so good.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about Ruben. We're here to talk about Yuri on Ice. We're only doing episode 1, just because I realized after watching episode 1 that apparently Crunchyroll has just uploaded all 12 episodes to YouTube. I went ahead and checked out episode 2, but this is just like a Yuri on Ice episode 1 review. I might bring up some of the stuff from 2. You guys are certainly welcome to bring up the other stuff, but I just wanted to just have the basis of, we'll watch 1 episode of this, and just to get the context down. If I had more time, I would have watched all 12, but didn't have the time, so nah.
I'll probably jump into some of the later stuff as we get into it, because Yuri on Ice, I was the one who demanded that we talk about this, because it is an anime that I really, really like and have watched many times. It's something that my wife and I have a shared kind of love of. And I wanted to talk about it because there was... So, to, like, is it okay if I provide a little context?
You're absolutely
for
fine.
Why?
Go ahead.
All right, cool. So, like, Yuri on Ice came out back in, I want to say, like, 2016 is when this show dropped. And, like, it's a 12-episode anime about figure skating. And it took off pretty quickly. And my recollection is that back in 2016, this show was, like, super popular. And I think, to this day, it remains one of the most well-known, sort of explicitly, or as explicitly as it can be, queer romance animes. Like, it's one of those, like, poll 100 people, top answers on the board, name a gay anime. Number 1 is going to be Yuri on Ice. And so it's developed this, like, really big fan base.
Wait,
and myself.
They're gay? What?
To be fair, you really can't assume anything with a dude just standing up naked in a hot spring in an anime.
I mean, yeah. No, it was kind of funny because, like, the first episode, like, it ends like that, and I was like, okay, I guess I understand why there's so much, like, association with this being gay now.
Oh,
I watched episode 2, and he's, like, half naked in his room, and he's like, tell me about your girlfriends, and, like, you know, we gotta get to know each other better. I'm like, oh, okay,
it's so good.
Now I get why it's gay.
Yeah, it's I mean, it is very like it only gets more and more like that, because it kind of starts with Victor, the one of the main characters, kind of flirting with our main character Yuri in a way that almost seems kind of playful and almost innocent from Victor's perspective. And then as the show develops, it really digs more into their like emotional relationship. And I mean, it is as explicit as it can possibly be, while still offering a shred of plausible deniability, and that has been like a source of frustration for some of the show's fans. But the other big source of frustration for the show's fans is that 3 years ago, in 2020, they announced a prequel film that was they released a trailer for it. It was going to be called Yuri on Ice Adolescence, and it was going to focus on Viktor Nikiforov, who again is one of the main characters, and it was going to focus on him during his younger career. And what was cool is that it looked like the trailer is a CG anime, because they were going to do a mocap CG figure skating anime, which makes a lot of sense. And then last month, after the movie was in development hell for 3 years, they officially said, yeah, that's canceled. And so everyone is I was like so sad, and we all in the fandom kind of expected that at this point, because it's been 3 years and we've heard nothing. Meanwhile, Mappa, the studio who put this out, has continued to like be very successful, and so we've all just kind of been like, well, this is clearly not like a priority for them. There's something holding up the development. They don't want to make this or work on this or whatever. And so when it got canceled, I got sad, and I went back and rewatched Yuri on Ice, and so it's just been kind of in my brain lately. And so I'm excited, because this is something that even when I was on the show more regularly, I was like, one of these days I'm going to make them watch Yuri on Ice so we can talk about it. So I'm glad I finally got around to doing that.
I mean, it was just funny because like I kind of forgot that it was my pick last week, and just as I'm reading Matt's comment on the last episode on RoboCop, he's like, I want to bully my way back on the show so I can talk about Yuri on Ice. And like as I'm reading that comment, I get a message from Steve saying, hey, what are we talking about next week? And I'm like, I guess God just wants me to talk about Yuri on Ice. So I was like, yeah, man, fuck it, let's do it. I don't know, it's an interesting one, because yeah, I've definitely heard like the reputation of this one a lot.
Yeah.
As a very like queer anime. That what's the like branding called, like yaoi or whatever, is something that I've seen like associated with it a bunch, or at least talked about with it and stuff. So I was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm getting into, and generally I do support that stuff. I haven't watched many male homosexual love story kind of things. They just aren't very prevalent, and I've just not seen a lot of good ones, I guess. So it was kind of interesting to get a taste of it from this. I don't know. I guess my like hot take on this one is probably gonna piss some people off. Actually, not a real big fan of the animation here. It's interesting that you mentioned, my ears kind of perked up rather, when you said that they're going to do a CG animated movie, and I'm like, yeah, no, I think that'd be a better move for it, because just in the first episode we get that whole sequence where Victor and Yuri are both performing the same doing the same performance on ice, and it's like intercut with the two of them. And just as I was watching that, all I could think about, like, this really doesn't look very good with the traditional style of animation, at least on the characters. I think if I had to posit a guess, I'd say a lot of the backgrounds and like the rink and the audience and stuff are probably 3D scenes, but the character animation itself looked very traditional 2D to me. And it just made it look kind of awkward, kind of choppy, and like they were just having a hard time keeping track of the different like body proportions and stuff, especially as the characters are doing, essentially dance moves, whatever you'd call it, for the performance on the ice. I thought it just made stuff start looking really, really weird. And I wasn't quite a fan of it, and that's just conceptually, at least, not something you'd have trouble with in 3D, because 3D does very well with angle changes and just keeping rigid bodies and volumetrics. Whereas that's like some of the hardest stuff to deal with in 2D animation. So that was my big takeaway of like, kind of disappointing. This is in traditional 2D. I think it holds it back a little bit.
Yeah, it's in fits and starts. They used real figure skaters, obviously, for like reference doing animation. All of them were done using male figure skaters, with the exception of the goodest boy, Yuri Plisetsky, the Russian Yuri. All of his stuff was referenced from a female figure skater. But there are portions that I think look really good. It's ambitious, I think it is, to do all of it. And I think they overall pull it off. But what you'll notice as you watch the entire show, and it's hard to unnotice it, is that there's a lot of reuse of animation. And there are some routines that clearly have more budget and effort and time put into them than others. Because as the show develops and it takes on essentially the structure of a tournament arc, because it's all about both Yoris kind of going through these qualifying events leading up to the big final skate, we meet all these other fun characters that are kind of little bit characters who show up for an episode or two, and they have their own little fun stories that sort of reflect a piece of the character journey that our two Yuris are going through. And a lot of that's done really well, and I can kind of get more into detail on that later. But some of their skates, you can tell, didn't have the level of time put into them, and so some of that stuff you see, unfortunately, gets a little worse in some of the later episodes. But then the two Yuris, you didn't really get to see much of it in the first two episodes, but they get their main routines that they do at each competition throughout the thing. Those routines have a lot of effort put into their animation, and they look, in my opinion, a lot better consistently. So it's I think the animation is a mixed bag. I like a lot of the character designs. I like the visuals of it. I think a lot of the backgrounds are really gorgeous. I dig just the general aesthetic of it. But I think its ability to capture the grace and fluidity of figure skating, it sometimes hits and it sometimes doesn't. And yeah, so I get the...
You can definitely tell...
Go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can definitely tell, though, that the studio gets better with this kind of stuff as they go on, because this is the same studio that did the final season of Attack on Titan, or the final season, which is really 3 final seasons, but we could talk about that later, and Chainsaw Man. And Chainsaw Man looks really, really fucking good in general. And this, you kind of see like the flashes of brilliance that the studio would be capable of later with stuff like Chainsaw Man or even like Jujutsu Kaisen, even though I don't like that series very much. But it's, for the time it was made, and as the series goes on, it does get better. Or at the very least, like you said, there are certain sequences that look better than others. The big problem I have is like the figure skating, I think, is mostly fine. Like sometimes it looks good, sometimes it looks great, sometimes it looks eh. But the bigger problem I have is like there are certain kind of just like normal animations throughout that don't look particularly good. Like there's a bit in the end of the first episode where Japanese Yuri is running, and the walk cycle animation is so bad. Like you're just seeing the same leg hit the background over and over and over again. I couldn't stop staring at it. But like that kind of like little stuff, they'll clearly cut easy things so that they could save up for the figure skating, or where it really stands out for me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It does definitely have those moments. I mean, again, I think overall, I feel like it looks good enough to execute on what it's trying to do. I just think the ambition of what they were trying to do sometimes gets away from them a little bit, and they end up kind of doing the best they can with what they have. And I think that it's a testament to them that it does overall still, I would say, look pretty good. But it's one of those things where with Ice Adolescence, the idea of, okay, let's do this again, but it's going to be skaters in like mocap suits with CG. Would have liked to have seen that. Would have liked to have seen it, you know? But I think overall, I mean, I like I said, I like a lot of the just visual design choices. A lot of the character designs, especially as you get later into the show, are very memorable and very, I guess.
I love Victor's outfits. Every
Yeah,
outfit that dude wears is fire.
they are, yeah, because you have essentially three main characters in this. You have Yuri Kotsky, Yuri Plisetsky, who the show starts calling Yurio because that would get confusing really fast. And then
I have an idea. Maybe just don't name two of your characters Yuri. If you're just gonna rename one anyway.
Because the show is called Yuri on Ice, and it's about both Yuris going on parallel but opposite character journeys. So it's thematic, Ian. It makes sense.
Fair enough, but it seems just needlessly confusing, especially if you have to rename one of the characters 2 episodes in.
Yeah, they start because. Yeah, they start calling him Yurio, and then the other one is Viktor Nikiforov, who is also Russian. And I've heard some people fucking speculate that they're like, oh, we are canceling the Yuri on Ice movie because it would be about a Russian person, and with everything going on with Russia right now, that's like a hashtag bad look. I'm like, I don't know if I fully buy that, but who knows?
It's a convenient excuse, but that's what it was.
Exactly, because I'm like, if that's the case, it wouldn't have been in fucking development hell for 2.5 years, man. Like, I just, I don't know. But yeah,
to talk about the show more generally, though, unless you were going to continue with that.
Nah, I'll get lost in the weeds. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say something that is interesting about this, because we talked about the fact that it's as gay as it could be, given what it is. What I like about this show is that it distinctly is not yaoi. Like, it is just straight up not that.
It's not like boys love. It's not like Junjo Romantica or something like that. It's like something.
No, because if it was, it could be more direct than it actually is, if that's all it was trying to be, because it was just aiming for that one audience. But it is actually just a straight up sports anime, where you have all of the hallmarks of a sports anime of like the main character and his rival. You've got like the best person to ever do it being their teacher. You've got all of these like weird sort of like tics in sports anime of where someone does something and then someone in the background's like, that pose, this means this thing. You've got like the tournament arc layout of the season. Like, it is essentially just first and foremost a sports anime, and then all of the homoerotic stuff is in it and is as direct as it can be. But I do kind of appreciate the fact that it's a sports anime that's different as opposed to just another yaoi, because I feel like if this was pitched the other way, it would be way less unique or way less interesting. And it kind of picks up on a certain subtext a lot of sports animes have too, where like if you watch Prince of Tennis, if you were in that fan base at all, everyone who watched that show was just like, and these two players are gay, and these two players are gay, or these two players are gay. Even like non-sports anime related stuff of that era can be like that, but sports anime in particular, I guess because you're just seeing a bunch of sweaty, good-looking teenage men hanging around each other all the time, just inherently gives you like that homoerotic vibe, not unlike Top Gun. So doing that straight up, but letting it be actually homoerotic, I think makes it way more unique.
No, I agree. It's you're taking essentially like the subtext that has already kind of been there, that is almost inherent to the genre, and making it text, while again still
as much as you can.
Yeah, there's a level of plausible deniability. Like, there are scenes, and I mean, since we are reviewing the first episode, I don't know if we should get into like spoilers right away.
It's fine.
Okay, yeah. So like in episode, I think it's 5, there's this like one of the most famous scenes in the whole show. Essentially, Yuri does this performance after having this really emotional moment with Victor, because he has this sort of breakdown where he's like, I'm not just nervous about competing for the sake of myself. I'm terrified because like, any fuck up that I do is going to reflect on you because you left the sport at the height of your popularity to train me. And if I fuck up, it's not just me, it's your reputation that's at stake. And he has this huge emotional breakdown. It's a great scene. Then he goes out, does the performance, does surprisingly well, and Victor, like, rushes him and embraces him, and they kind of in midair collide over the ice, and it's clearly a kiss. Like, it is very much a kiss. But the way it's animated, Victor's arm covers where their faces are meeting. So, like, it's definitely a kiss, and if you look at the scene, you can see that their lips are, like, literally centimeters apart, moving towards each other, but you don't see actual contact happen because of the way it's blocked and shot and animated. And because that's so obvious, a lot of people have said, oh, well, clearly, because it just kind of makes sense in your brain that you're just like, oh, clearly this isn't how it was originally intended. Originally, that it was a kiss, and they must have added that for, like, censorship. But it's like, no, that's what it was. Like, that's because there's a myth that has been circulating for forever that the show was going to be more explicitly gay, but they had to, like, censor it and change it because of Japanese laws about when certain types of shows can air. And that's just completely untrue. Like, it just is the way it is because that's the way it is. It wasn't necessarily because they were, like, forcibly censored or whatever. But it still gives them this deniability. There's even in episode 10, they give each other rings in front of a church with a choir like doing carols or whatever, and it's like so obviously this, like, engagement, this marriage, this sort of like, will you stay with me forever thing. But in the text of the story, it's they both get each other, like, these, like, Lucky Charm essentially rings, that, like, symbolize their relationship as coach and skater. And so it's like, we're so fucking close, and the fact that we are so close without ever explicitly saying it almost frustrates some people more than if you just hadn't even gotten that close in the first place. And I think that that's a really interesting point of friction that some people have with this show.
I mean, I think that's interesting because there is definitely something to that, but I feel like there's a spectrum of this. What you're describing and just what I saw in Yuri, I'm going to say, is on that spectrum of this is how far the people making it know they can go, know what they can get away with, and they're playing it as safe as they can, but are trying to push the envelope. Versus the other end of the spectrum, which is like the lesbian kiss in episode 9 of Star Wars, or the like kind of thing, where it's just the studio coming out and saying, oh, well, this character's gay, but not in the international cut, not in the Chinese cut. And so, like, I think there's that spectrum of, like, well, this is bullshit because it's just, trying to get the points for pushing the envelope without actually taking any of the risks that would be involved. Whereas Yuri, I think, is an example of pushing the envelope as far as they can while still trying not to get themselves canned. It's kind of funny because the way Steve talked about it, this was like a newer up and coming studio when they were doing this, when they started out with Yuri.
Not newer necessarily, but they were not as prominent as they are now.
Okay.
They definitely, like, hit their high last year or the year before with, like, Attack on Titan and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, but even then, still, like, so this was, like, a risky maneuver for them as not being a huge name studio for the time then, for being not at the top of their popularity when they did something like this. That is a pretty significant risk that they took given Japanese censorship. It's not even that, like what Matt was saying, that they were forcibly censored. They probably knew what they could get away with and push the envelope as far as they could.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a certain level, like, if you're gonna try and push the envelope as much as you can but maintain plausible deniability, I'm okay with it because the harder you go the more risk there is of having to be censored later. And I feel like putting out something that is explicitly gay and then coming back later and cutting it out and censoring it makes it worse.
Right.
Another anime had this around the same time. Well, actually, it would have been a couple of years later, but it's still anime related. But Gundam Witch from Mercury was a series that just wrapped up somewhat recently, and it featured the two main characters were women and they were gay. And the anime went as far as letting them get married at the end. But then when there was backlash from it, they essentially censored it out so that you don't see them get married, but you see them wear rings. And that's almost worse, in my opinion, where like you put it out there and then you just like pretend like you didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny too because there's a scene after they get their like matching rings. There's a scene where they're like having dinner with some of the other skaters, and one of the skaters sees their rings and like stands up and is like, "Congratulations on your marriage!" And like turns to everyone in the like plaza where they're eating and is like, "Everyone, my friends just got married," and everyone starts like clapping and things like that. And they kind of make a joke out of it, and then Victor like speaks up and is like, "No, you've got it wrong. These are engagement rings. We're going to get married when he wins the gold medal." And it's like, because he has an accent in the dub, and so it's like,
which is great.
Yeah, no,
I
strongly
recommend for this one.
Yeah. No, dude, like
it was we can talk about it more. Go ahead and make your point, and then I'm gonna like go on my why dubs are superior fucking rant.
The dub of this is so fucking good. But anyways, so like they sort of and most people who read the show and watch it, you're just kind of taking that as like, yeah, but literally though, like they probably are going to get like that is like beyond a shadow of the doubt how these characters view it, because there's even a really great scene where Yuri is like, "Victor, will you be my coach until I retire?" And Victor's like, "That sounded like a marriage proposal. In that case, I hope you never retire." And it's like just this really great moment. So it's like, it's all there. Like it's 100% there. They just have to like skirt around it, make jokes about it. They will make explicit jokes about gay marriage, but then we'll kind of dial it back and be like, no, we're just joking, but not actually. That's what it is. Like, and there's it's this like coy thing that the show does that I think, Steve, I think you guys are 100% right on that. Like, I would rather have something that is this versus something that tried to go further and then had to be forcibly backpedaled, because I think this ultimately works really well. I don't think anyone in their right mind could look at this and think it's not gay. To steal a joke I heard from someone else, I would sooner believe that someone saw this and didn't think it was about figure skating.
This is true.
That's pretty good. No, I really want to meet the person who like did not get the homoeroticism of this and just thinks it's a really manly story about figure skating.
Right, exactly. There's a fucking great scene. There's like one character who, one of the figure skaters is like unambiguously straight because he has like a female fiance, and there's a great scene where he like imagines himself like falling behind the other skaters, and all the other skaters are kind of like looking down on him and drawn to be looking like all mean and sassy and just as gay as fucking possible. And it's just like the one straight figure skater is getting bullied by the gays, and it's so fucking funny. It's so good. Oh god.
What are we gonna put?
Yeah.
Put some regulations on these mean bullying gays.
It's so good.
All right, so let's transition a little bit, and I want to talk about my things with anime and dubs. I bring this up a lot, so we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but animation is a medium that is inherently about the visual spectacle of look all these individual frames that someone composed and drew and painstakingly put into motion, and then let's ruin that by distracting you to go read the bottom of the screen, and this was absolute hell, and I just kind of gave up about 5 minutes into the first episode with trying to keep up with all the subtitles, because there are like sequences where like characters are talking, but also there's a newscast going on at the same time, so you have like subtitles on the bottom of the screen and up on the top of the screen, and I was like, okay, I'm just not doing that. And this just, Yuri on Ice has completely proven my point that if you want to enjoy an animation, you should probably enjoy it in your fucking native tongue. I don't care if sometimes the performances, you know, you imagine it's better, because I just don't fucking believe you unless you speak the goddamn language.
Honestly, the ideal way to watch anime, in my opinion, and I've had this opinion for years, is you watch it dub, but you leave the subtitles on, because 99% of the time, the subtitles for the sub and the subtitles for the English dub are the same, because they don't bother to re-record the closed caption. So you can watch the English dub and listen to them speak and compare in real time to what the subtitles actually say.
That sounds
so
like
if
it
anything
would drive me
wrong,
fucking
you can figure it out.
crazy. I would be so
I
bothered
gotta
by
agree
that.
with Ian on that one. I would hear a line and then look at the line on there, and I'd be like, that's not what they said. That would be me like the whole time.
Like no, you don't even understand, Matt. Like, not even to the point where like they changed this for the English, but like even if just like one word is wrong, it would just bother me because of like an ad lib from the actor or something. Like, it would just bother me so much.
Well, that's actually a really good transition to talking about this dub specifically. Have you, Steve? I know you've at least seen this show at some point before. Have you seen the dub? Or
I only seen the dub. I have not seen the Japanese because I find it, like Ian said, I find it hard to pay attention to the actual animation if I'm paying attention to subtitles. But the dub is great because all the Russian characters have actual Russian accents, which is awesome.
And like, so Micah Solisad, who is the voice of Yuri Plisetsky, who I have to shout out because he delivers like legitimately a phenomenal performance in this, because I think Yuri Plisetsky's journey that he goes through in this show is like powerful to me. Like, I think he does take slightly too much of a back seat in the second half of the show, but I do really like his character. But I have the Blu-ray for this, so I've watched the last couple episodes with the commentary, and he talks about how he like worked with a dialect coach from Russia, and so like he throws in ad libs that are like actual like Russian swear words and shit like that. Like, he at one point called someone a vedma, which is like an old-timey Russian word for hag, and he says words like, he'll say certain words in a Russian dialect that is like kind of odd sounding because his character was raised by his grandfather. And his dialect coach was like, oh yeah, this is how like an older person in Russia would probably say this word. So there's like a few things like that. I'm like, and then you get to the extended cast of characters, because like Yuri and the other Japanese characters, like they don't have accents largely because I don't know, that would be kind of racist, I guess. But also because they're kind of our point of view character, so like we're just kind of experiencing it through their lens. So it's like, to them, they don't have an accent, so they're kind of our point of view. But then all the international characters, because it's an international skating tournament, so like they all have accents, so you get to hear Christopher fucking Sabat playing Christoph Giacometti from fucking Switzerland, and he's so fucking good. This skater who like oozes sex appeal and will like be out on the ice, and you get to hear Christopher Sabat in a fucking Swedish accent being like, oh, I'm going to come, like while he's skating, and it's fucking hilarious because it's so fucking good. And you've got fucking what's his face? You've got Jeremy Inman playing a Canadian skater, Jean-Jacques, who just will occasionally throw in these like the great people of Canada. Like, he'll just throw in these like Canadianisms every now and then, and it's like silly and kind of over the top, but it like fits the melodrama of it. And the dub is so good and so much effort went into it that I think it's a shame to watch the sub, unless obviously you are Japanese, and then in which case watch it in your fucking native language. But still, the dub of
keeping on.
What was that?
I was gonna say, keeping on with the dub though. The intro is so fucking good in English, especially.
Oh yeah, History Maker.
History Maker. It's so fucking good. I love that song.
Oh, it's great. The he actually put out like a piano version of it like a couple years ago, or maybe not even. Maybe it was even more recent than that. But there's like he's got like a piano version with him just like soloed out with the piano singing it on Spotify. It's a great opening. Yeah, it's really good.
I had this experience when I first watched it where the anime opens and it opens in like the most cliche sports anime way possible, but it's all kind of summarized within a couple of seconds. And so you get like the gist of like, oh, okay, this is a sports anime, except it's about figure skating. And then immediately it just hard cuts to the intro History Maker, and you're just watching these athletic men dance around while that song's going on. And I just got a smile on my face because I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if it's partially the short runtime or just the folks who were working on it just feeling really passionate about the project, because they talk about that in the commentary, is that because there's commentary on the last 2 episodes on the Blu-ray, and they talked about how like when they were shopping around through shows and looking at it, they saw Yuri on Ice and they were just like, oh, this is just like a generic, like, who cares? And then the minute they got the chance to like start watching it, apparently like a lot of people in the Funimation office or whoever dubbed this were like desperate to work on it, because it quickly garnered this reputation as like, this is going to be huge, and it was like at the time. Like, I remember this show like sweeping a bunch of awards. I mean, they're anime awards, so who gives a shit? But like, it did sweep a bunch of awards.
I feel like you're undermining your point there a little bit, Matt.
No, I just like to bully weebs. No, it swept a bunch of awards. It was really well known. And like, I feel like
a bunch of overweight men in anime conventions wearing tutus were like, this is the greatest anime ever, and we believed them.
Well, that's what's funny about this show. I feel like it's one of those animes that kind of like non-anime fans even like and know about, because I know the figure skating community loves this anime. Like Johnny fucking Weir. Johnny,
like,
yeah, they do.
Sorry,
like
really?
I was gonna say actual figure skaters will do these routines sometimes.
Yeah, no, I've seen stuff at the Olympics where people will actually pull from this.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's really funny.
Yeah, fucking Johnny Weir, one of the most famous figure skaters of all time. He loves this show. Like, there's an interview with him on Crunchyroll's like YouTube channel where he's like, "Yeah, I really fucking like this show." And like, most of the skaters in the thing are based on real life skaters. JJ, Jean-Jacques Leroy, he is based on a real skater who is a fan of the show, and JJ has this like signature like hand gesture that he does because that's like his character. He's like super braggadocious and his fans love him. And the guy that he's based on will occasionally do that. Like, when he does competitions, he will do that little hand gesture. So it's like, and the attention to detail in the figure skating itself, in like the typical scores, the types of jumps, things like that, and everyone's just like, all of this is like 100% accurate and true to the sport. So it's interesting how much passion, because the director of this also worked on a couple other shows, and she did I think she did the opening for its Persona 5 Royal, and that opening features the characters like figure skating, and like one of her like early projects was like a short that featured like figure skating or dancing. So like, the creator of the show, the director of it, she has like an intense passion for this sport. And I feel like that comes through in the more sports anime side of it. But that's really cool.
No, I agree.
That's something about like.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say, that's something about anime and manga that's just like inherently more interesting than a lot of Western stuff, where if you just have a hobby and you're just super into a hobby, you can turn it into an anime and manga, no problem. It doesn't matter if there's an audience or not for figure skaters in Japan. You will create one just by turning it into an anime. I was listening to an interview with Chip Zdarsky a while ago, who does a podcast with other comic book people where they just pick a volume of manga to read together and talk through. And so they would just go through like the first volume of Naruto or the first volume of Attack on Titan or whatever and just like talk about it. And so when he made his creator-owned series public domain, his big sort of realization was like, no one in American comics can just like say, hey, I really like cooking. Let me make a cooking comic book. The way you can do that with like figure skating in Japan. And when you get those people that like really like these hobbies and like really have a passion for it, it turns up some really fascinating stuff, because like this has real life skating illusions, but like so does Prince of Tennis, so does that basketball anime that everyone likes, what's called a Slam Dunk. Like that practice of just turning animated all of these pro celebrities in your passion project is very common, and that's part of the fun of watching these things, because you get like a different perspective on not only what makes these athletes iconic, but a way presenting it in anime terms where like what makes them unique is just a literal superpower inside the universe of the series can be so much fun to watch.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
yeah. Sometimes I don't get it, and I'm kind of glad that it's not a thing, but with stuff like this, I definitely do see the thing, or see the appeal to it. Sports animes, I think, are a cool idea, because, I mean, sports shows have been a thing for a long time. I guess we just, instead of, like, as cartoons or comics, we just do, like, live action. That's what, is Ted Lasso not just a sports anime?
Up to a point. Up to a point, yeah.
So I guess we just
So
do
is,
that
like,
shit in live
challengers,
action in this day and age. But it is interesting, because I would like that more. I'd like to see more, like, you know, random topics, non-cape shit with comics, non-cape, non-crime. That'd be great. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm ready for like slice of life comic books either, so I might be a bit of a hypocrite on that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about the I think, Steve, you're right, the presenting it as like a superpower. I mean, there's something about like the intensity that it's portrayed with. Like when you're watching Prince of Tennis, or when you're watching this, when someone is skating and they're pushing themselves, like later in the season, where Yurio will start like pushing himself beyond his like physical limits. It feels like this gargantuan thing that's happening, and it's impressive the way a lot of these like sports animes are able to convey that, and it's kind of pulling from the same tricks that make action feel huge and shonen. You're able to use that to make these things that are realistically just low stakes little performances feel like the most monumental thing that's could be happening in the world right now.
And I think that's why like making it a sports anime as opposed to a straight up yaoi is again part of the benefit of this, because you're getting a chance to do something with figure skating that you wouldn't see in any other context. A lot of sports anime will essentially just have the main character goes Super Saiyan or something when they're in the middle of like the flow of whatever sport they're playing. So like in Prince of Tennis, like when you hit that groove, you just start glowing yellow for no goddamn reason. You start glow yellow and you play tennis while glowing yellow. So with something like this, like when you get that in the first episode when they're both doing the same routine, and you're hearing the announcer comment about the number of spins he's doing and landing each time, that kind of stuff where you're heightening the stakes, where like in real life you watch figure skating and you hear the commentary will be reactive, but like in real life obviously people are moving so quickly that you're not getting like literal move by move commentary. So being able to like slow that down and make that moment more melodramatic, where someone is literally walking you through the physical impressiveness of it, almost like it's a finisher move from Dragon Ball Z, makes it a lot more engaging, even if you weren't normally interested in something like figure skating.
Yeah, that's one of those things, like when we get to later in the show, when we get to like level, or not level, I keep saying level because at the end of each episode it says like see you next
Ice
level.
Skater 2, and this is to go even further beyond.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this show needed. It needed him to like just scream as he's doing his quad flip, and then his hair sticks up and goes fucking.
You know the funny thing is,
But yeah.
watching this, I don't know what it is and why the man is so good at making sports movies. But watching this, I just wanted to rewatch Blades of Glory, the Will Ferrell and what's his name, Napoleon Dynamite fucking ice skating movie, where they both got banned from the men's single, so they come on as a double team, which with two men, and it's just fucking bonkers.
Oh yeah, provocative. It gets the people going. Oh, it's a fucking movie. But yeah, I agree with that because it's funny. Like my a lot of people got like into figure skating because of the show. Like my wife actually went to the U.S. Nationals this past year, and got to see fucking Ilya Malinin, who is an American figure skater who just fucking shattered the world record this year, and everyone's. Because he did like 6 fucking quads and nailed them all beautifully, and everyone was blown away. And now they're thinking about limiting the number of quads you can put in a program, so no one will be able to ever beat that record. But regardless, yeah, no, it's the way that it's you start to see like so. There's in episode 5 when Yuri surprises Victor by putting in a quadruple flip at the very end of his program. And it's this big like character moment because the quadruple flip is Victor's like signature move, and Yuri's whole character growth is that he's always been talented but is self-conscious and like not confident enough to put himself out there and like take those big risks. He's always so afraid of failing that he won't make himself take those huge risks. So when he does that, he puts like a very difficult jump at the very, very, very end of his performance, which is when it's going to be the hardest for him to land it. It's sort of a character moment where he's like showing to Victor that he's willing to like come out of his shell and try to open up to him more, which like deepens their relationship. But it's that anime thing of the character pulling out this like crazy move that everyone's like, oh, what is that? Because that's exactly how they play it. Like, even though he barely manages to like land it at all, the fact that he was able to do the jump, get enough rotations to qualify it as a successful jump, even if he didn't land it, it was still like you cut away to all of the people looking on, and they're doing the like gasp and like, oh my god, was that a quad flip? Oh my god, and you get the kind of announcers going over that, and so it's that same bag of tricks that you get from everyone looking at each other when fucking Rock Lee starts pulling off his weights and going insane. Like you're pulling from the same bag of tricks. But Steve's right that because you're able to like slow that down and let the impact of that single move in the performance sort of reverberate and settle and stand out, it makes it a lot more impactful. So I think it's really well done for what they're trying to do. I just think that some of the animation reuse and some of the inconsistency of the animation just lets it down sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny, the more we talk about this, the more I'm just remembering every other thing about figure skating I've ever learned. Do you guys know the story of Surya Bonale, the Olympian from the 1994 Olympics?
I do not.
Oh, okay, so this is cool. She was a gymnast, and then she transitioned and started doing figure skating for her career. And she was the first person that could do a backflip on ice and land on a single skate. And they banned the move before competition because they said it was too dangerous. She was also one of the early black female figure skaters. And so there's a lot of like accusations of they just didn't like the image that she presented, and a lot of the judging and like rulings came out and like had very like dog whistly kind of language of like her moves are just too rough, too savage, blah blah blah. And so she, at the 94 Olympics, she knew she wasn't going to win because she made a mistake early on in her performance. So she just decided, fuck it, this is the last time I'm ever going to be on a national stage, and she ends the routine with a fucking backflip, which is just hype. So cool. They need to make a fucking anime about her.
There was a fucking figure skater, because not to just detract from that at all, because that's fucking awesome as shit, but there was recently a French figure skater who did a backflip in a like European championship because he knew he was so far ahead that he would win anyways.
Oh man, that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's fucked up. I love that.
Yeah, and he did win because he's like, I am so far ahead in score that if I do an illegal move and get a deduction, I will still win.
Jesus.
He did. It's fucking
So
awesome.
good.
It's like just
Big dick energy. I love
That's
that.
called
Yeah, it's the
stunting on them hoes.
yeah, fucking ultimate flex. But yeah, no, I mean it's the passion for figure skating and the way that even if it's even if the animation falters here and there, the attention to detail paid and the ambition of it, I think is definitely very commendable, and I think it ultimately works fairly well, even if you have those kind of weird little moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, emotionally, they do a really good job with the two Yuris and Victor's relationship, where that kind of stuff in the animation feels less distracting because you're so zoomed in on the stakes of why they're doing this thing. The second episode, where they each get their assigned rendition of the song, and they get essentially the opposite one that they were hoping for. And Yuri K has like two really good standout moments in that episode where like he's surprised to see the other Yuri show up, but then he tries to present like a level of confidence because Victor is his coach. And then after they get assigned the song and Victor asks him, what does he want if he wins? And he just says he wants to have that pork dinner with Victor. Like those two moments in isolation
he wants
do
a
a really
pork
good
dinner,
job of
all
making.
right. Oh.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
You do.
But those two moments in isolation where like he's demonstrating like what's at stake for him and why he's so like enamored with Victor and wanting to prove himself. Those are endearing moments. And like that feels more interesting because you open the series from the very beginning with him just crying in the bathroom because he's lost the nationals immediately. So he's already starting at rock bottom. But you're getting these glimpses of him where like you see that he really cares about how Victor perceives him or about how he relates to Victor. And so like when they do the more impressive stuff later, it feels like it really resonates because you're watching this kid come out of his shell in a way that you weren't expecting when he's just crying in the fucking bathroom.
The show does such a good job of bookending its characters. So, like you mentioned, Yuri Kotsky, like, crying in the bathroom as kind of our big introduction to him as a character. And what's so fucking cool about this show that I think it's just them, like, flexing on how well they know how to structure their story. Our introduction to Yorio is him storming into the bathroom, yelling at Yuri and calling him a
Why don't you just kill yourself?
he storms into the bathroom. He calls Yuri a washed up loser has-been who is crying like a pathetic bitch and he should just retire. And the show ends with Yorio pushing himself to skate harder than he's ever skated because the thought that Yuri Kotsky might retire pisses him off. And he's like, if you retire now, I'm going to make you regret it for the rest of your life. And then he finishes his skate. And for the first time in the entire show, we just see Yorio like break down and sob. And it's like, so it's like such a fucking flex that they were able to, and that's what I love about like short animes that are able to like so concisely tell one specific story, is that you get these beautiful ways of bookending these character arcs and these beautiful ways of so effortlessly showing the audience where a character is starting and then showing where they're ending, in ways that like pay off how they were introduced in the first place. It's really good. Like, I think one thing that gets lost in a lot of the conversation about Yuri on Ice, because people talk about like, the animation being ambitious, if a little uneven at times. They talk about how cool it is that it's so explicitly gay, or at least as explicitly gay as it can be. And I think the thing that gets lost is that it's also just a really well-structured and well-told story. Like the journeys that the two Yuris go on that are essentially opposite character journeys of Yuri Kotsky learning confidence and learning to put himself out there, and Yuri Plisetsky learning what it means to be vulnerable and learning what it means to like not put up this front all the time works so beautifully, and I think is so well done. And I think the conversation around that sometimes gets lost because I think people are talking about more of just the broader kind of the broader strokes, which is understandable because there's a lot to talk about with that. But I think like at its core, the reason the show holds up so well and the reason it did win all those Crunchyroll awards is because it's a really well told story, which is cool. Yeah, people got mad at it for sweeping the Crunchyroll awards because some people were just like, "Why didn't Shonen number 725 win?" And I'm just like, "Because who gives a shit?" Like, because I'm sorry that your Shonen that's still not anywhere as good as Yu Yu Hakusho didn't win. Like,
hey.
I don't.
The best shonen of all time. We peaked and never went back.
I'm just saying that the Dark Tournament arc is where shonen anime peaked, and I don't know why we bother trying. Like, that's all I'm saying.
The Dark Tournament is the best tournament arc of any anime ever, and it has still not been topped.
Damn.
Yeah. And then there's also like food plays a pretty big role in this show as well. The idea that like food is this bonding between these different characters, because you see even the first time we start to see Yurio really open up, it's when he like experiences like the food that he's trying in Japan, or when we get to meet his grandpa and his grandpa makes like a Russian dish for him called piroshki, which I have made and it is delicious. You get to see that like food is this sort of thing that bridges these gaps and lets you kind of get a sneak peek into these characters. And I just think a lot of that is just good, solid, fundamental storytelling and character building. And it's something that I don't always see as often as I would like in anime.
Yeah, but like,
Broadly.
Can he beat Goku though?
At figure skating, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, what are we talking about?
The food point is interesting because one thing that I really liked about the show is you're right that like it doesn't seem to get the credit it deserves as far as just like structuring the narrative, because the other stuff kind of takes away from it, or like takes away the limelight from it. But something that I really like is it's really on the nose about being just a short, concise 12 episode exploration of the idea of love in all of its forms, because the two music pieces that they're composing, the whole idea is that it's the same song, it's just arranged differently. And so there's the agape version and then there's the eros version, and both are Greek words for love, and both are opposite ideas of love. So you have like these two polar opposite points of like unconditional love and then like sexual love. But as you watch the show, even from like the very beginning when he talks about like his dog dying and not being able to be there for him, there's all of these nuances in the middle of like there are different kinds of love that facilitate both of these things. There's platonic love, there's love of friends and family, there's love of something like your pet, there's love of a thing like a passion like the skating, and anything that you love falls into both of these extremes of, are you very passionate about it, or is it something that's a little bit more sort of like natural, unconditional, and smooth? And I really like how they use not only food, but like the people, the kids that he grew up with that were rooting for him to like become a figure skater, the people that were fans of him in Japan versus the people that didn't like him so much internationally because he wasn't doing very well. All these like different layers where you're getting the exploration of what exactly does it mean to be a fan of something, or to love something, or to enjoy something, and can you oscillate between these two kind of dichotomies of love without trying to like live in any one of those two extremes for too long.
Yeah, and it's because you see like with Yuri Katsuki, it's this idea that he and Yuri Plisetsky have both kind of pushed love away to a degree. Like Yuri Plisetsky is someone who has always been this like, I'm going to do it on my own. Like I am an island and I will handle this. And it's not until he forces himself to be vulnerable because he gets assigned agape, which is that unconditional love, and it's like he says, that's so not me, and he has to like learn how to embody that, and the only way he knows how to embody that is he starts actually thinking about things for once in his life, because he never really thinks, because that's kind of Yuri's character. He's like a one track, he's like, I know figure skating and I like figure skating, and that's it. And then as he like sort of thinks on like his grandfather always being there for him, the relationship he's starting to develop with the other Yuri, things like that, and it's like these walls start coming down. Whereas with Yuri Katsuki, he's also got these walls up, and he's got this great conversation with Victor early on, where he like talks about how he a friend had like an injury and he was really worried about them. So one of the other people he was skating with like came over and like gave him a hug to try to like comfort him, and he like kind of clammed up and like pushed her away slightly. And he talks about how he's like, I always just felt like people trying to express love or support to me felt like they were coddling me, like they weren't trusting me to be able to handle it on my own. And so he's kind of closed himself off, not because he thinks he can do it all on his own, but because he doesn't like the idea of being like pitied or anything. And so it's him like kind of learning to accept other people's support and understanding that he can't grow as a person without embracing the love of the people around him who like want him to succeed. And it's like that is what pushes him forward, and it's like that's the thing that he always falls back on as what gives him the confidence to make more bold and dramatic choices in his performances. And I think all of that is handled really, really well. I think Yorio's could have been fleshed out maybe a tad more. He meets a character like named Odebek at the very end of the show, that sort of ties a bow on Yurio's whole story, where like Odebek becomes his first like true, just honest friend, where Odebek like just talks to him and is like, we should be friends. And Yuri's like, and even the voiceover, like Victor's in voiceover saying like, no one had ever asked to be Yorio's friend before. And you see the two of them shake hands, and your like heart kind of melts a little bit, because it's like the whole show is preparing Yuri for the moment when he meets someone who then says, hey, do you want to be friends? And Yurio getting to the position where he can say yes, because Yurio at the beginning of the show would have said no. And it's like that kind of puts a bow on his arc. And so then at the very end of when he's doing his performance, you see that those are the things that like push him to, because spoilers, Yuri Katsuki doesn't win. Yurio wins. Like Yuri Plisetsky wins the grand final by like the thinnest margin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ends up working out really well, because at the end of the day, the thing that was driving Yuri was not necessarily winning. It was finding the confidence to prove that he could get on that level and that he could do that. And so like him getting silver is still a good ending for him. Whereas with Yurio, it's kind of that singular drive that has pushed him for this entire time. And so he's the one who ends up kind of taking the gold. And I just think all that works really well. And I'm kind of rambling, so if anyone else has something else they want.
All right, there's one thing I've been thinking about kind of throughout the review, and I'm not sure like if I really even consider it a problem. It's just something that I think it warrants talking about to a certain degree. So figure skating is obviously a very like young sport. You can't do it past a certain age, and you have to start at a very early age. So Victor is 27 in this,
yeah,
and Yuri's 24.
He's 23 at the start of the show, 24 by the end of the show.
Okay, so I mean that's actually not like a ridiculous age gap by any means, and it's kind of funny the idea of only 4 years separating them. It's like, you're my idol, I grew up loving you. It's like that's actually possible in figure skating in a way it's not really going to happen in a lot of other sports. So that's kind of funny. But I do think it does warrant, is there a conversation to be had around whether or not Victor is kind of abusing his role as a mentor? Is there like a what's the word I want? A difference in the power balance of this relationship, and is the idea of Victor pursuing a romantic relationship with this person who has idolized him and he's come to train as his student. Is that a little maybe a little fucked up, or you think it's like passable within the context of the story?
I've seen some people complain about that, simply because like in real life, that like coach-student relationship is kind of not something that you want to infringe upon. And I've even seen some figure skaters say that like while they like the show, they don't love the romanticizing of a coach-student relationship. And I get that to a degree. I think the fact that like Victor is shown to be a shitty coach in a lot of ways kind of mitigates that a little bit. I don't know. What do you think on that, Steve? Because I'm not really sure how I feel about that. That's something that I've like thought about in like the very back of my mind, but have not really ever given it any super serious thought.
I mean, I get it on like a very literal sense,
Yeah.
but I don't think that like within the context of the story, it's necessarily a problem, because essentially what you're getting at here is you have two characters that each other fills a need for, because Victor needs Yuri as much as Yuri needs Victor, and they choose to dramatize that as a teacher-student relationship or a coach figure skater relationship. But like at the end of the day, right, like what's really happening here is Yuri needs to come out of his shell, and to do that he needs to get into a relationship with someone that can kind of foster that coming out. I think taking it as sort of like an abuse of power or grooming thing would maybe just be taking it too literally, and would kind of discount how much of an impact the Yuris have on Victor himself too, because he doesn't have it all figured out even by the end of the show, really. And like you said, he's kind of a shitty coach, but there's also just like these other kinds of like pressures and stuff that he's not aware of initially when he decides to just be this kid's coach. So I think that kind of stuff mitigates it too, because they are treating the two of them as people who are about to embark on a relationship. I don't think they're necessarily treating them as student teacher. And also to like a degree, right? Like there is this sort of like wish fulfillment fantasy side of it too, of just like the promising young pupil and the super attractive teacher. Like they are kind of playing up the melodrama of that a little bit, and like maybe it's a little morally ambiguous, but I think that's part of the charm, and that's part of why it's attractive, because you're thinking about it, because it's a little forbidden fruity, it's a little bit weird, but that's kind of the charm. That's kind of what makes it hot.
Yeah, I think that's
a good point.
Kind of the thing I wanted to get at a little bit, which is it's very funny how we have, as a society, have created like this genre of romance, either romantic comedies, romantic novels, like erotica novels, stuff like that, where everything every character does is like so idolized and so romanticized in the like upper R case of the word, but yet in reality is like actually terrible behavior. Like just any rom-com, if like an actual person were to do any of the things in any rom-com, it's actually like creepy and stalkerish, but because it's of the way it's like portrayed within an act of fiction, it's like really sweet and romantic, and it hits you right in the feels. But it's like if you actually ran to pursue the woman you loved at an airport, to try to convince her to take you back, and like after she told you she didn't ever want to see you again, that's like fucking stalkery. Like everyone else at that airport's gonna be like, "Are you okay? Do you need me to call someone for you?" Like,
yeah, I mean it's
just funny how that like tends to work, and I don't really know what to do with that information outside of, you know, maybe it is all ultimately harmless within the context of the story and it works well within the context of these stories, but maybe we just need to like try harder to not romanticize potentially toxic behavior.
Yeah, it's one of those things, because I think you make a good point about like Victor needing Yuri, because Victor essentially does this because he's reaching a point in his career where he's not really sure where he wants to like go, and by seeing Yuri, he's like, that's it, I can help this kid, and that's going to like help move me past this kind of block. And it's not done with the intention of that happening. He just does sort of start to kind of fall in love with him in the same way that Yuri's kind of falling in love with him. And I also think that, yeah, I mean, that's a good point about that relationship dynamic existing is part of what makes it kind of, I guess, yeah, it makes it like hot to explore, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Because like, there are tons of, like you said, Ian, fictional relationships where the relationship dynamic being what it is in the story, if you took that out and put it in reality, it would be fucked up and weird. But in the story, because they're playing it as this big, epic, melodramatic, larger-than-life thing, that's why it works, and it's not fucked up and weird. And in this video essay, I will argue why Raylo is actually really good.
That's a thing that, like, that's a conversation that's been happening a lot lately, too, because, like, there's been that whole movement of people who are like, sex scenes don't need to happen in movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do.
And so yeah, they do. They absolutely do. And I've been reading, like, a lot of these articles for people, like, on both sides of it, just kind of trying to figure out where I land on it. And one thing that I really like, and an argument that I am very sympathetic to, is the thing about fiction is it's not just an intellectual exercise in like a purely follow the plot, follow the theme sense. You have to have like a physical reaction to it. So like, for example, when I watched Blade Runner 2049 for the first time, and I was just in awe of the movie, when it was over and the credits started rolling and you heard the score on top of the credits, I kind of like, I felt the reverberation of that music in my bones. I was so chilled. When you're in a horror movie and you're scared, you're like sweating bullets or your heart's racing. That physical reaction is part of the storytelling. And one way you can have that physical reaction is to watch a sex scene or watch a romantic comedy and being like, damn, I'm really fucking horny right now. Like, that's part of the experience. And if the artist can make you feel that way and bring that reaction out of you, then that's part of the story too. And so like, if there is an element here where like they put the characters in maybe not the most practical relationship status for real life purposes, if it kind of like feels like it's arousing you, if it feels like you're into it and you're enjoying that dynamic because it's giving you a reaction, I don't think there's a problem with that necessarily.
No, I would tend to agree with you. Again, it's just like this funny thing of the reality of why we encourage, or the reality of creating fiction that encourages or would seem to encourage toxic behavior in reality seems to be a like slippery idea, and you begin to understand why people have such a hard time, dealing with their feelings in healthy ways and not being overly dramatic bitches. But here we are, like the idea of like, oh, this fucking guy cheated on me, so I'm gonna like crash his windows in and key his car. I'm like, that works really well in like the context of a country song, but in the context of reality, you could go to jail, so maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
I need to take a Louisville Slugger to both headlights, Ian.
Slash the tires on all 4 cars, and maybe next time he'll think before he cheats. Or, maybe just sit there and go, well, was I being a good enough partner? Why did he feel the need to cheat? Like, what was I doing in this thing? And it's not always the partner's fault. Some people are just shitty partners, right? And we'll just go cheat. But, like, maybe just a moment of self-introspection instead of just the, like, this will feel so fucking good to go fuck up his car. I'm like, nah, I really need the country song. That's what I need. I need the country song of the person who went to jail for doing the wish fulfillment revenge moment. That feels like a Johnny Cash kind of song right there. Like I walked in on her cheating, I killed them both, and now I'm in prison. and I don't regret it kind of thing. You know, that'd be a good fucking country song. I'd listen to that. This is
Probably wouldn't be very therapeutic.
Yeah,
No, there's,
this is a wider
there's a
topic,
fucking-
and I don't want to completely distract Fury and Ice. It's just an interesting thought that I've had in regards to a lot of romantic fiction of what works on the page, what works on the screen, is exactly what you shouldn't do in real life, and it's kind of funny that we seem to encourage these like bad behaviors by fictionalizing them so frequently.
It's funny too because then I'll like hear people who I don't know are my age and read mostly YA fiction, and they'll be like, man, I only stan unproblematic romances, and like this is, you know, and then they'll like list off what it needs to be not problematic, and I'm just like, oh cool, so you just like reading boring stories then.
Yeah.
I just like I don't
Exactly.
I'm just like because it's like yes, even the Raylo thing where it's just like, well, you know, this is way too intense. I'm like, yeah, because they're fighting each other in a war and then they fall in love over the course of the war. That's what makes it interesting. Like, I don't know how to explain that to you. That's what makes it good. It's like, oh yeah, they tried to kill each other. Yeah, because they were fighting a war. It's okay. Anyways, I'm getting distracted.
I mean, to bring that back to the context of Yuri on Ice, right? Like, to my original point, like, the fact that there is a sexual tension between a student and the coach in the middle of the series is part of the appeal. So I think that's why it works. It's like it has those homoerotic vibes, but you have to put the series narratively in a context to bring those vibes out. You can't all just be Top Gun and have a random plot cul-de-sac where everyone plays half-naked beach volleyball, you know? Like, that doesn't work all the time. So you have to put them in a situation where they're, like, working together or sweating with each other, and maybe there is a power dynamic there, but that's what makes it, that's what lets you do those homoerotic things. That's what lets you get into those moments where he's like leaning in over him half naked, or like where he embraces him on the rink and it looks like they kiss. Like those highs of emotion only kind of happen when you manufacture that situation.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it's like an outright ban needs to happen. It's just something where I think we maybe need to like reflect on some of these choices a little bit more. And what the effects of art are on people's real life decision making. It's just interesting. It's an interesting topic of conversation. This felt like a relevant time to bring it up. So I figured that'd be a little bit of fun. Okay. What else do we need to talk about with Yuri on Ice? Because we are getting pretty close to time on this episode. Is there anything else we really need to bring up?
In the sub, Yuri's favorite food is katsudon, which is a pork cutlet bowl, and so Yurio starts calling him Katsudon because it's a pun, because his last name is Katsuki and his favorite food is that, so he calls him Katsudon because that's his name, and also because he gains weight easily. But in the dub, he just calls it a pork cutlet bowl. And so Yurio just starts calling him pork cutlet bowl as like an insult. He'll be like, hey, what's up, pork cutlet bowl? Get out there on the ice, you fat piggy. And I'm just like, that's not a pun now.
It's
so
just
that kind
so
of
much
doesn't
meaner.
work. Yeah, it's like it is way meaner.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I will say, I think Yurio was my favorite character because he's just like a really shitty, mean 15-year-old, and I just appreciate that.
I remember you'll probably appreciate this. I remember my wife really loves this show, and then we were talking about like Batman, and she's only read like a smattering of more modern stuff, and the more she started learning more about like Damien, and she's just like, oh, so he's just like Yuri Plisetsky for Batman.
No, 100%.
And I was like, yeah. that's that's exactly it. No, he's an archetype I really love. He's just the shitty little ball of anger who learns that there's more to life than being a shitty little ball of anger.
No, there's not. And, don't fucking lie to me. I've based my entire personality on who I was when I was 15, and I have no regrets. What the fuck are you talking about?
No, Yuri Plisetsky is like hands down my favorite character in the show. I would ask if anyone else has any like standout skaters, but I know Ian didn't get like far enough to really meet any of the other skaters. But I'm curious, Steve, do you remember because like the other skaters are largely like bit parts or only there for a couple episodes, but a lot of them are super fun and super memorable, and a couple of them actually have their own little mini story arcs that are kind of played out through their performances. And so I'm kind of curious if you remember any of them, or if any of them like stand out to you as ones you enjoyed.
I did have one that you actually mentioned earlier when you were talking about like the dub and the voice acting and stuff, but I really like the Canadian dude.
JJ,
He's
yes.
so good.
He's Jean-Jacques is like arguably like if there's a fifth main character, it's Jean-Jacques.
He's so good.
He's super fun. He's super braggadocious. He's got all these like Canada leaf tattoos. He's got this whole bit where he's like, not many professional skaters could do a collaboration with a world-famous rock band for their skating music, but I can, because I'm the king. And it's so fun. And his song is called Theme for King JJ. And it's so goddamn good. Like, no, it's JJ funny. Yeah, he's great.
It's funny because like there is actually an American figure skater that shows up, but the Canada dude is almost feels more American than the American skater.
No, the American skater is like one of the most forgettable of them, fucking Leo. But yeah, no, the Canadian skater JJ is he's great. He is like probably one of my favorite characters in this whole show. He's super good. There's another skater that they meet early on in the show named Kenjiro Minami. Do you remember him, Steve? Do you remember this
Not
character?
by name.
He's got like the red and yellow hair, and he's like a super fan of Yuri.
Oh yeah, I do remember him.
He's super adorable, and he's got this great moment where like it's like in episode 3, so it's still like pretty, or it might be episode 4, so it's still like fairly early in the show, where like Kenjiro Minami is like this 17-year-old skater who's like still a rookie and is like a huge fan of Yuri, and like Yuri goes to compete in this like little local tournament with Victor just to stunt on some kids, I guess. And like he sees Victor go up to Yuri and be like, "Oh, hey, your lips are chapped," and Victor like pulls out some chapstick or whatever and like puts it on Yuri's lips for him, and you just cut to Kenjiro like staring at them and like freaking out like the yaoi shipping trash that he is. And then after he puts the thing on his lips, he then pulls in Yuri for like a hug, and then we just cut back to Minami going like screeching while like no one else is paying any attention to this. It's just Minami like watching the two of them be gay and like freaking out, and it's so funny.
I remember he's like the perverted gag character that every shonen has, who's just always in the background trying to find people who are attractive, except his attractive couple is the gay skaters.
Yes, it's so good. Yeah, him and JJ are probably my two favorite of the like skaters that kind of contribute to the rest of the cast.
That is one thing that I kind of wish the show did more of, is like have more focus on the international skating thing. Because Matt, you and I both really like G Gundam, and one thing that G Gundam did really well in that first season is you got to travel across the world, and every like international Gundam pilot had like their own standout episode. And I kind of wish this series did more of that, just to kind of like give you a chance to see the anime skating scene on different parts of the world. But because of how short it is, I guess it's just not realistic.
Yeah, I mean, that's because I wouldn't have wanted it to distract away from like the main plot any more than it already does. But I do see where you're coming from with that, because like JJ, I think, is the one who gets the most sort of development as a character of the side skaters. Because JJ, now that Victor is not competing this season, he's kind of the favorite to win. And he's never competed, like he's reached this level that he hasn't reached before, just because he's kind of new to this circuit. But he's like incredibly talented. He enters the final, the tournament final, as like the person who has the most points, and he sort of self-destructs because he's feeling like the pressure of being this huge, like, because he has this huge dedicated fan base. He's got like all these people who are counting on him, and so he like sort of self-destructs a little bit, and he's actually the one who has that freak out that I mentioned earlier, because he's the obviously straight skater who then sees himself getting bullied by all the gays, and it's a really great scene. And he kind of has this moment where he just like completely fucks up his routine, like in a really irreparable way, but his fans still like start cheering for him and start like praising him, and he has to like kind of realize that, you know, the people he loves and the people that care about him are going to stick with him even if he doesn't succeed every single time. And like that's a little mini journey he gets to go on. It's really good. So like he's probably the one who gets the most development of the side characters, so it kind of makes sense that he's the standout, and he's just really funny. And also the show itself is really funny, which I wish I could say more often about anime that I watch, but it is actually a pretty funny show. You don't intentionally so.
You don't go for the comedy animes?
It's not that necessarily. It's just that like most of the anime I watch, which does admittedly tend to be just like kind of random shonen stuff, the humor just doesn't typically hit for me. Like I can't think of a time when Naruto actually genuinely made me laugh.
Damn.
It also sort of feels like we've been telling the same 3 jokes in shonen for the last like 30 years. So like there's just nothing funny anymore.
Yeah, it's really not. It's not that anime can't be funny. It's just that the anime that I most commonly have watched throughout my life, typically the jokes don't land super well for me. It is possible that I just need to get like outside of that bubble and watch like different genres of anime, and I'll probably find stuff that hits a little bit more
Way
for
of
me.
the House Husband. You gotta watch that. That shit.
I did watch Devil as a Part-Timer, and I found that somewhat funny.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah.
I thought that one was pretty cute. But yeah, this show's actually like legitimately really funny to me. There's a lot of like, especially again in the dub, there's a lot of bits that really make me laugh. Most of which are coming from Yurio, but that's about it. That's all I got.
Okay, no, it was a good one, man. I enjoyed this episode. I didn't have a ton to say, but it was really interesting to hear all your opinions on it. I can tell you wanted to talk about this one for a long time, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess it does kind of come back to me again, unless Steve has something he wants to pick for a topic for next time.
I'm down for whatever as long as it's a topic, because I probably won't have time to watch anything this weekend because I've got company coming over.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll think up a topic and we'll discuss it. So we'll just we'll leave it vague for now. But it was fun to talk about Yuri. Did we want to do a rating or nah?
I can.
Okay.
I can give a rating.
I feel like you have to do it though, like figure skating style, with like out of 10 with a decimal point. You can't just do the regular system.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Shit, I would give it like a... Man, I don't know. My brain is jumping to a 9.2, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say a 9.2 out of 10. Doesn't quite hit perfect 10 simply for some of the animation. It struggles a little bit, but like overall, I'm always kind of one to judge something on like the overall experience. I don't like to be super mathematical about my points, unlike figure skating judges. Oh, no, you know what? Fuck it. It gets a point taken off because in the final 2 episodes, one of the commentators is voiced by Vic Mignogna, and I had to fucking listen to Vic Mignogna. So it gets a 9 out of 10 because of that.
I'll go ahead and give it 8.3 out of 10. Fucking just savage. Fucking kill yourself. You're crying in a bathroom, teenagers. Like, I know he says just retire, but honestly, I just like the look on his face was just fucking kill yourself.
It really is.
I'll give it a very arbitrary 8.9 hot 27-year-olds that come to live with me uninvited.
That's the dream, isn't it?
Isn't it though? Isn't it though?
Meanwhile, Matt's wife is just sitting there like fucking staring him down.
I gotta say though, saying that joke hits different now that I'm like in my 30s.
Yeah.
I'm still 29 for a few more months, so it works. Right.
So one day you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be old, Steve. It's coming.
I know. It's coming this October.
Oh man. All right.
Boy.
Well, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I don't have to sign off.
I am the Emperor of the Universe. I'm the Yuri on Ice, the Yuri on Ice erotica lover, which is I can actually say that. I've read Yuri on Ice fan fiction, so I get to say that. I don't. I feel like you guys think I read more fan fiction than I do because I don't read a lot of it, but I have read a chunk.
I feel like you read more fan fiction than you let on, and you just don't realize it.
I mean, that's probably true.
I mean, relative to us, you probably read a lot of fan fiction.
All right, we'll point to. Well, what are Batman comics written by somebody other than Bill Finger and Bob Kane, if not fan fiction? Am I right?
I mean, this is a good point. This is a very, very fair.
So fuck you. Anyways, but yeah.
All right, and we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Born to make history.